quick.
We need to have him here.
I wish his application, we had his pro staff application.
Oh, I had him somehow. He got a hold of one of my pro staff apps for advanced, and he filled it out. And the guy's never hunted really in his life, I don't think.
Not much.
And he's like, I only kill top 10 state Boone and Crockett's. And I mean, it's
Yeah.
And honestly, I've seen apps that are way worse than that.
I'm checking to see if we're live yet, but I don't think we are.
That's scary.
It says it tagged me.
Yeah, we are live. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're live. What's up, everybody?
All right. What's going on, everybody?
Yeah.
This is Jay. Good to see everybody again. And we're back on Facebook Live. And Dusty, you want to tell everybody who our sponsors are for our Facebook event today?
Covert Scouting Cameras. Look them up, dlccovert.com. Covert Scouting Cameras.
Very cool, man. And we are joined with a couple of special guests from the Huff Land Company, Dave Graham and Jake Huff, who are on episode 185 of the podcast back in February. Welcome to Facebook Live, guys. What's going on?
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. This is new to us, so kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little television show on Thursday nights.
It is. It's unfortunate that people have to see my face now. I'll probably get less business. So.
I was trying to figure out how I could get the screen up when you guys up over there.
Yeah.
Right.
Just edge Dave out here. So
I feel like I look good on radio. I look a lot better on radio than I do on television.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
I could agree to that, Jay.
I appreciate that, Dusty. You're a good co-host.
Lots of love. Lots of love.
Lots of love.
If we can have fun, guys, it ain't worth doing.
Right. That's right.
That's right. Guys, tell us where you're at right now. Obviously, I can tell you're at the Huff Land Company, but where is the Huff Land Company?
Cedar Falls, Iowa is our home base. I live in Cedar Falls. Jake,
outside of Cedar Falls.
We both live in rural Cedar Falls. But our territory is, all of Iowa, if need be. I myself like to kind of specialize in Northeast Iowa when it comes to land sales. But I'll go anywhere. I think the same with you.
Yep.
Pretty much.
You betcha. We're licensed in the state of Iowa.
This should be your guys' logo. Huff Land Company. We'll go anywhere.
You going to get royalties off that now, Dusty?
Oh, maybe. I mean, we got it recorded here, so yeah.
Right on.
That is a good.
Everybody's witnessing. We've got a few people joining us right now. We've got Doug Whitcomb. He said, we are live. Thanks, Doug, for the feedback. And Brent Londier from Louisiana. Famous Londier. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
My old man's on there. What's up, Chuck Phillips? And
Chuck Phillips is on.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very, very cool. So I thought we should talk a little bit about buying your piece of whitetail heaven, as we had talked about on the podcast. And we're going to do a little show and tell tonight. If anybody has any questions about buying whitetail property in Iowa, these are the guys you want to talk to right here. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And on the podcast, we went pretty deep, and you explained a lot of different things that I'd never really put together when I was thinking about buying real estate, especially when you buy whitetail real estate. You had explained to us that there are some things like even scouting the property for the whitetail on the property are important, and that adds value to the property. So can you guys tell us a little bit about how that goes about? And we're kind of recapping some of the podcasts, but tell us about what you do to prepare a property for sale, and how do you assign a value to property as you go about it?
I think the one thing that a lot of times it is a bit of a process, and sometimes people need to get something going right away, and you need to get it on the market, get it moved within a certain period of time. But the ones that are I think work best for the sellers is when there's a little bit of planning that goes into it, and maybe they've already done some of the homework on it as far as trail camera pictures. They've hunted it extensively, so as we're walking through, they give past experiences, what's worked for them, how the deer move through there, just a lot of insight. Sometimes we run into people who haven't used it for quite a while. They haven't used the property. They're not hunting it anymore. They had kids. The kids, moved away, and now it's just kind of sitting, and nobody's really using it. So, best case scenario for us is that we get to spend a little time doing some almost homework on the property, spending time there on the ground, putting up cameras of our own to kind of give us an idea of what kind of the deer population is, what if there's mature bucks, kind of the age class that's going on the property. So it really means a lot. I think sometimes people that don't sell properties a lot don't understand how much that insight can be. I mean, there's some areas that are just there's big deer everywhere, but some of these other ones that aren't in the best of the best neighborhoods, but still have good deer hunting quality. You've got to do a little bit more work on them. So we'd like to spend as much time on the ground and not just driving by and taking a picture from the road or something like that. So.
Gotcha. I was wondering if we might be able to share some of the properties that you have for sale, because I don't think that if you're thinking about buying a piece of property, that a lot of us really even know how to go about it. I think we've all dreamt about maybe buying your own piece of property in Iowa, so you can go deer hunting there in some of the most pristine whitetail property in the country.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so far removed from a reality for most people that you just kind of forget about it. Well,
Sure.
You can make that happen, and I think there's a lot of really cool aspects that you guys can show us on this show tonight. And I think we should go and look at some of your properties that you have listed. Maybe you can tell us about some of those properties and why they would be good for a potential buyer.
Absolutely. Which one you want to start with, Jake?
I suppose we go to one of the Tama properties, I suppose. As I think we talked a little bit before on the podcast. Just there's so many different things going on a piece of ground. There's stuff that's enrolled in certain programs. I think it's really important. And a lot of people don't understand the repercussions of a property that's got a WRP easement, which is a wetlands reserve program, a lifetime easement. There's it really is wise, to do some homework and some studying, working with an agent that understands it, is really important. So this one that we're going to try and pull up here, if we can get it.
Sorry, guys, the computer's going a little bit slow.
It is in WRP, and so it's a wetlands reserve program. It's got a lifetime easement, means that, for instance, you can't do row crop. You can't plant, till it up and plant it full of corn or beans. However, you can, put 5% of the total acreage amount into food plots for the wildlife. But the reason that the property is in a WRP easement is basically it's along the river, and the NRCS is kind of determined as kind of a sensitive area, and they don't want cattle grazing and everything else. So there's a lot of different, that would be fine. There's a lot of different insights, and so some of those programs, even within the WRP program, can be have different rules depending on what if it was done in the early 90s or just here in the last few years. So there's different rules for each one. It's good to work with somebody that understands all the ins and outs. But these properties, like the one that we're pulling up here now in Tama County, that's a deer that was shot on that property.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure the share was working.
Okay. So these would tend to be the kind of the entry level as far as price per acre. This particular property we have at $1,100 an acre, which is extremely low in Iowa. But one of the reasons that is that it is in a wetlands reserve program easement. So it does have some rules that kind of go along with it. One of which is you can't have permanent structures on the property. So you couldn't build that cabin, that you've always wanted to have on your own hunting property. So there's some limitations there, but it is definitely you can get a lot of acres, for the money, and you can hunt it. It doesn't mean that you have to let anybody else hunt it. You still own the property, but there's just some limitations, things you can and can't do. But it's loaded with deer, lots of turkeys. The Iowa River, you can fish it. There's pretty good waterfowl opportunities there as well. So, $1,100 an acre, you're into some pretty good hunting. So,
with that, this quick question on my end, with that, with that being in a program like that, is there any revenue generated from that program?
That's a great question. Not generally. Okay. So, like I said, you can do food plots, but that's not going to generate any money. The only way is you can sometimes harvest timber. It just has to be done. That plan has to be created through a district forester, and then it has to be sent to the NRCS main office in Washington D.C. for approval. But it can be done, and that's really about the only way. This particular property that was just pulled up, you can actually mow it and bale it once a year after August 1st. So a lot of times that'll pay the property taxes and put a little money in your pocket most generally. So, yeah.
Each property has its, we deal with a lot of timber reserve as well. Timber reserve, basically, if the property is in that, you really can't make any money off of it. You can't log it. To an extent, in Iowa, to be in timber reserve, you're supposed to have 200 trees per acre. So you can go in there and cut a few trees down, but you just can't wipe out a section. The benefit of timber reserve is your taxes on the property are next to nothing. I mean, literally. But on the downside is you can't till it up. You cannot make money off that property. You can't have cattle running in there. But most farmers that own 2,000 acres and have all this tillable ground, it's very wise for them to put it in the timber reserve because, number one, it helps the Iowa habitat. Number two, it's very beneficial to them because they're paying very little for taxes on it. Now, if we have somebody that comes and buys it, it's fairly easy to take out of timber reserve if they want to do something like that. But, generally, they're looking for, whitetail habitat, turkeys and stuff like that. So, why mess with it?
The property that Dave and I just sold in Fayette County, for instance, it was just under 100 acres, and it only had like about an acre of open ground in the whole thing. Okay, and so the property tax bill for that particular property was $16 a year.
Wow.
So, so not much income, good timber value. That one was not in any kind of program other than the Forest Reserve program, which Dave was just talking about. But, not a lot of income, but not much expense either. So.
Yeah, it all works out in the end. If you're looking for a management piece of property to for the habitat and wildlife, and that sounds like it's a great buy for us, money for land. I mean, my gosh, $1,000 an acre, holy cow, that's dirt, really.
Yeah,
it's that farm in Tame is beautiful. I think it was real funny. I'd never heard it described this way, but Jake said there's so many turkeys they literally die of old age there. And obviously, there's a lot of deer too. But
what about this? Another quick question that popped in my mind: when you buy a piece of property like that, can you run almost like an outfitter on it? Is that a possibility that you could sell guided hunts there on that piece of property?
Yep. Yeah, you could.
Yep. Absolutely.
Just curious if there's any way around trying to figure out how to revenue a little bit of money on that investment, that just recoup some.
Yeah. Small timber harvest is probably the best. There's on that particular property, there's a lot of mature soft maple and cottonwood. That's basically pallet lumber for the cottonwood, but it adds up. The soft maple, especially, there's a lot of board feet there. So
what about What about the farm that you brought up first there? Was there a possibility for guided hunts on that piece too?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, just trying to think outside the box of what somebody that may be watching might have a question. And it just seems
Yep.
like you spent $200,000. If there's any way possible to
Yep.
rekindle back some of that money and enjoy the piece of property. I mean, I know guided hunts or
Yeah.
wild hunts. It just seems like it was a great question that popped in my mind. I had to ask it.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways that to look at that return on investment too that a lot of people are after, and for me, I think you just have as a buyer, you just have to know what your goals are. If it's a return on investment, you're gonna rule some properties out, what you would anything in WRP or that's mostly timber. Especially timber that needs another 10 or 15 years before you can cut it. But the other thing to look at, and this Fayette County property that we just sold is a perfect example. I spent some time there this fall, and in a tree and got to see a lot of the deer that were running around. Had cameras on there, and my wife actually was with me up there a few times, and just the way that property laid out, the scenic, beauty of it, where it was, its location to our, to where we live, was right at that hour range, which is kind of a, convenient, an hour or less is always kind of desirable. There was just a lot of different factors, and this is the one that Dave's showing now. It would pay back a lot in memories in my mind. And that, that's something that people just have to decide. I think it hunted pretty predictably, with just the way that the pinch points were, the lay of the land, the neighbors and their management practices. So there's a couple of different ways to look at it. And to me, that has to be a big piece of it. If it's truly going to be something you're going to spend a lot of time on, and with your family and just people, friends, that, I don't know. To me, that's got to be a big piece of it. I understand that there's guys that want that, 3, 4, 5% return if they can get it, and that's great. But at the same time, if you see a property like this that just lays out spectacular for deer and turkey hunting, and it's a really, really beautiful place, that's got to be worth something too. So,
Yeah, it makes sense. And so let's say that I'm going to try to break a little bit of this down. Like let's say I'm a hunter. I'm looking in Iowa. What's the first thing I need to do? I'm looking to buy a piece of land.
I think, most generally, I think you're probably going to start by looking at some of the companies' websites and stuff. But I think it's important to just find an agent, call an agent that works in land, and have a conversation with them. I think what can happen is, if you're just calling the listing agents, that's fine. I'm not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but I think you need to find somebody, especially if it's your first piece of property, that can help you from start to finish, identifying that all the potential pitfalls of a property that they may not see. Some of the ins and outs of CRP, WRP, just a lot of different things. Financing, a lot of times that's a tricky one, but if you know the right lenders, they can make it a little bit easier. So I think you got to find the right agent that you trust and knows going to find you what you're looking for, and not just try to sell you the first place you walk on.
Well, I think, excuse me, I believe we talked about this before, but a lot of people will be so excited to get that farm, and it might be the price that's appealing to them. They'll get to it and I love it, I want it. Well, honestly, it's really not laid out the best, or
Access.
Access to your, whatever you want to do. So say you want to hunt it, and it's almost impossible to gain access to your tree stands without bumping the deer going through a bedding area. And that's kind of where we come in. It's not like we're dream killers, but we don't want to sell them something that they're going to regret buying.
Right. So I mean, so not only are you guys, real estate, but you're able to read a piece of property and kind of break it down to where that's a great part of being in real estate and being into hunting and being involved with the outdoors and knowing how things work. And if it's a piece of property, yeah, you guys may list it, but if it's not beneficial for the person that's purchasing that piece of property, you're going to speak up. You're going to be honest with them and say, hey, I really don't want to bust your bubble, but we need to break this down. Maybe go out there, walk the property. Let me show you what we got going on in front of us. And it may not be exactly what you're looking for, even though visually and physically it feels maybe great, but it may just not be the right piece of property. So you're saying that once you get in touch with you guys, you're going to break this down and walk them through what's going on that piece of property. And that's something that's priceless to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And some buyers are better about that than others. Some of them like the input. It's always kind of nice. I mean, you always learn something. That's the one cool thing about this business is that there's always something to be learned, even as an agent. And we get to meet some really smart people, people that have hunted a long time, and just that dialogue as you're walking through the woods of just, talking about, maybe stand sites or, talking about the wind direction, how to get in, how to get out, shooting lanes, just a lot of different things, maybe micro food plots or, something like that, just a lot of different things. And so it's always kind of fun that's strategizing and planning. I mean, I think that's probably one of the neatest parts about owning your own property is that, it's a year-round thing. You get to spend a lot of time on it and the planning, and it's a year-round process, and it's really a neat thing to be able to do.
Did I hear you say that you was hunting on a piece of property that was on the market? Did I hear you say
that one that Dave had the drone video on? Yeah.
You guys hiring? I'm all in.
Yeah. Well, it's a fine line to walk because you don't want the sellers to think that the only reason you're listing it is to be able to hunt it. But in this particular case, we just didn't have a lot of background, because the guy hadn't used it for quite a long time. He's had some family members using it and different stuff, but I really needed to get some good trail camera pictures and just see what was going on there. And honestly, I think that's what helped, because I got to tell Dave everything that I saw. I had a lot of pictures, that I got to share, and then he got to pass on to his buyer. And, I just think it works out really well. And Dave could probably even tell you that his buyer's got a property that, he wants us to take a look at for next year.
Yeah, it's it's going to work out really neat. And it was great hearing Jake come home. And I do want to make it clear, like, we're not listing these properties to hunt them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, for sure.
But sometimes it may take that. So we're ready to film on it, and big deer is what sells the property. So if we can get them on camera, why not do it? But so the farm that we had the drone going on, that was Jake's listing. I had a guy call me, and I took him out there, and just knowing kind of the way that Jake had been hunting the property and described it, I basically saved the best for last. And honestly, I think that's one of the coolest farms we've ever listed. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a beautiful property. It's not really too far from where we live, so it wasn't like we're driving 3 hours to go look at it. But without getting too long-winded, save the best for last. We went down into a bedding area, and the bucks, most of them still had their antlers at the time, and we must have jumped like 40 deer, and it was like madness. The bucks, these big bucks, are just running back and forth in front of us like they don't know where to go. And the gentleman that bought it, he's like, you have them in a cage or what? What's going on? Did you say cue the deer? And that was it. And I'll take it. So right. The really cool part about that is now that gentleman has a farm that he wants me to list, but we're going to wait a year and, go look at that property. It's got some CRP on it and gather some history. So we have the trail camera pictures. We have, he does want us to hunt it. And just gaining that history, putting in some food plots, essentially making the property worth more for him, and holding on to it a year just to kind of mend it up and make it the best that it could possibly be, and then we'll list it next year. We'll be able to answer every question possible.
Right, and that's priceless.
It's fun.
It is. It's fun, and kind of going back a little ways, but talking about hunting and showing people properties, and we understand that aspect of it, just because hunting is truly our passion. So we can relate to a lot of buyers. A lot of hunters or farmers aren't hunters. They could care less if we hunt.
Right.
They want us
to
market the property and be good at what we do. And I think that's what sets us apart, is because we're doing, contracts on acreages, residential, day in and day out. So the legalities of real estate, we understand. And, that's where we want our farmers to know that, that we're just not out there to hunt their land, or we're just, that's all we do. So I think that's important for them to know.
I think it's just interesting that there's somebody that's specializing so much in this type of thing. I mean, if you think about it, real estate, you kind of like, I want to buy a piece of land, and you go to a real estate agent, and that's it. You get the financing and go. But when you want to buy a whitetail piece of property, I think it's just amazing that there are people in the world, you two in particular, that are specializing in whitetail properties. Every aspect of what a hunter is going to be looking for, and that what to go do to find out if that land's worthy or not.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, I didn't know you guys even existed in the world. So that's what this right here.
Yeah.
So if you want to buy a piece of property in Iowa, this is what you're going to do. You're going to call these you're not a sponsor or anything. This is just us having a conversation, because I think it's such a unique piece of real estate.
Yep.
And that you guys can do it.
Yep.
Did you see the smiles on their face, Jay, when you said no? What the whitetail situation is on these farms.
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's just kind of comforting to know that guys like us could potentially buy, a piece of property without guessing.
Yeah.
You guys take a lot of that guesswork out. I think that's just a really good service to deer hunters who want to buy just a nice piece of property in a place that is known for having nice whitetail. It's just, it can be like a dream come true.
Well, especially, for both of you guys being, out of Iowa, if somebody's coming here from out of state, which we get,
right.
Their time is very valuable. So we want to kind of narrow down those properties. But, they might say, hey, I kind of like this one. And we're going to be completely honest with them. And it might not be the best thing for them.
Right. Right.
It's just a lot of factors, a lot of factors to consider. And it's just good to have somebody to bounce ideas off of.
You guys are both hunters. You understand the aspects coming at this from the hunter's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Not only, you have the land management that you want to consider, and all the aspects of what that property could return value-wise. But then there's that element, I might be talking to a real estate agent that might know a little bit about that, but if they're not a hunter, how am I going to?
Yeah,
right. There's a level of trust here that I think is just a little higher than.
It always makes me cringe when I see, a nice piece of property listed, and the agent's taking a picture with their cell phone, and you can see the mirror from the car door, because they don't even get out of their car, to look around and know anything about it. I mean, it's just so foreign to so many people, and I don't know, it just is a real disservice whenever you see that kind of stuff going on. But
we do have some questions coming in, guys, and I want to read a couple and encourage anybody who's watching right now, if you want to join in the party, if you want to ask a question, then please do so. Just list it below, and we'll ask these guys the questions as they roll in. See, here's a question from Seth French. It says, are the requirements on vacant land loans on building requirements in a certain time frame, or a tax restriction on the land for X amount of years on certain loans if you don't build.
That's going to be that's going to be like an in-town situation within the city limits of somewhere, and I think that'd be a city code. Depends on where that is. You'd probably have to look. I know I've done, in the past, been a part of residential development, and that sounds like something that is more of like a city type situation than a county thing.
And I don't have the question up, but it almost sounded like maybe he was asking about possibly a construction loan on a piece of property outside, and then if he didn't build the home in time for that, if he'd get a penalty on that. And
yeah, that's what I'm gathering. Like, is there a penalty if you don't build on it in a certain amount of time? But at some of these places, you don't need to build, right? And these just pure old recreational land,
right?
And or maybe it has some kind of return on values.
The thing to know also is there's different counties that have different building restrictions. I mean, there's some counties, like the county we're in Blackhawk, isn't real easy. However, I live in Butler County, and that's that's way less restrictive. You get to Hamilton County, there's no zoning at all. It's which can be a little bit of a detriment to know that as long as your neighbor could get DNR approval, they could pop a hog building up right next to you. But that's a whole nother situation. But
remember that farm in Bremer that I sold, and we had it listed just kind of more as a recreational property. Well, the people that bought it from me decided that they wanted to build on it, and it was zoned ag, so we had to. I was in front of the board of supervisors, the building and zoning, and so I went to all those meetings and actually got it done to where they were able to build on it. So sometimes there's some hoops to jump through, but we're going to be there to help along the way. So
you guys go anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere in Iowa.
Anywhere in Iowa.
License in Iowa.
Can you bring up a couple more of the listings that you have? I want to see just kind of what we're dealing with in some of these other pieces of property and what you guys looked at specifically when you were listing or bringing these listings on.
You can probably do that either. That'll be good.
Sorry for the computer going a little bit slow.
Yeah, we're not on dial-up.
No.
Iowa does have high-speed internet. Fiber, actually.
Does it really? Okay.
Yeah, we're right uptown.
I didn't know that.
Is that even a thing anymore, old dial-up internet?
It's kind of how it's working right now.
This was a smaller farm up in very northeast Iowa, but man, it was just beautiful. I mean, look at those deer.
Nice.
That's the interesting part. You go out and get trail cam pictures when you're trying to decide how to sell this property. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's what people want to see. But the thing I love about this business is I talked to this farmer who bought this property just the other day, and he's looking for some advice for food plots. And I'm not claiming to be a food plot expert by any means, but I love that, we're just not real estate agents where it's like, hey, thanks, good luck, and we hope you do well. I kind of take pride in it to where I've become friends with a lot of my clients, and I love the fact that they trust in me to ask what to do with their land, or value my opinion. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is cool. So that was a piece of property. You sold 40 acres. Do you remember first seeing that property? Like what did you do when you got there to try to scope it out and decide what to do with this and how to sell it?
Well, this one was kind of special because it was about half tillable and half timber. Okay. Alameda County is a monster buck county. And it was right across from Yellow River State Park, which is, that's public hunting, but I mean, there's just huge deer in the area. The genetics are great. And and the one thing about this property is it really hadn't been hunted hard. I believe one family member had hunted it for quite a few years, and that was it. So, walking the property, I'll see if I can find a better picture. There were some pretty deep ravines, and there was, one of my favorite things to hunt is there was a power line going through it, which essentially, is a highway for deer. I think that's right. the power line right there.
And sometimes I would think that would be a detriment to a piece of land if you're not, or just a piece of property. Like some people don't want the power lines going through their property. But in this case, it's a benefit. It's
absolutely a benefit because, these are animals that are going to take the path of least resistance but still want cover. So, power lines aren't ever really a bad thing.
Especially trying to build a house under it.
Unless you don't want to do that.
It messes with your head.
Right. But that was a fun one. Again, it's a smaller property, but these deer, as a matter of fact, I had that one at 10 yards, that buck, and it's a long story, but I didn't even get to
Did you let it go to bring the value of the property up?
Yes. Yeah. Lonnie, the buyer is still after that guy. So.
Okay.
But let's see. You want to see another one?
Yeah, or just maybe these are some of your solds. I would like to see what's on the market right now that anybody's watching.
We need more listings.
We need more listings. Okay.
We got a good tillable here.
Yeah, we got one down in Monroe County and 3 down in Tama County that are all close to one another.
So when you say tillable, what does that mean to the buyer? Does that mean that there's some
row crop?
Row crop, that's income property.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Planting corn and beans.
Yeah. I don't think this one has any timber on it, does it?
No.
So, and that's Lance. He's in our office. Phenomenal person. That's what I love about working here too, man, is we're all, all of us on the land side are all extremely like-minded and kind of have the same values and stuff too. So we all get along very well, and I think that's why.
So 115 acres in Black Hawk County. What's Black Hawk County all about?
That's the county that we actually live in. We're in Cedar Falls, Black Hawk County. The CSR2 rating on that property is high, very high, extremely high. So, the higher of that, the better crop that the farmers are going to get off of it. More bushels per acre. But you can see the difference in the value on tillable or crop ground versus hunting recreational properties. So tillable still bringing a lot of money and
that's dang near what, 12,000 an acre for $1.3 million.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but the row crop market's it's definitely down from 4 or 5 years ago. Especially 5 years ago. Whereas the recreational market really hasn't slowed much at all. So you get these dynamics, of, corn prices and bean prices being down and affecting, the straight row crop farms pretty dramatically. And then the stuff that's more recreational really hasn't changed a whole lot. And I would say, is still going up, especially in southern Iowa. Northeast Iowa, I think we talked about before, is always a little bit more money per acre than southern Iowa for about the same type of, the soils typically are better in northeast Iowa. The timber's normally a little bit better. It's maybe a little more scenic in the far northeast part of the state than it is in southern Iowa. But there's just more habitat and more property to sell in southern Iowa than there is in the northern part of the state.
Very, very interesting stuff. And I feel like we could go on all night. Let me just double check the questions here one more time.
What's the crop yields there where you guys are at? Say on that $1 million piece of property, you said it's got a high yields. What?
Yeah, I'd say probably that one's I would say probably average 200 bushels, maybe a little bit more an acre.
What about corn? Or what about beans?
Probably in the 60s, 60, maybe low 60s.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good yields.
Yeah, and there's, it could be more. It just depends on if you. I mean, something like that you could hit. In certain parts of a field. Field monitors could hit 250 bushels for a spell. It just kind of depends a lot on the rain and all that stuff. But
Sure.
Once you get that good soil, as long as you get a little bit of rain, you're going to get a good crop. So.
It's amazing.
I just wanted to reach out to anybody that's watching. If you have any questions for these guys about buying whitetail property in Iowa, let us know now. I think we're probably going to wrap this up in a little bit. Brandon Steven just said he's hello from Wisconsin. How's it going, guys? What's up, Brandon?
What's up, Brandon?
So now, Jake, you've got some ribs that
I do.
Slow cooking at home right now.
Yep. So, finishing in oven.
How come we waited so long to talk about this?
You don't want to.
I've been hanging out with him for the last 3 hours, just him and I here at the office, and I haven't got an invite yet.
Is that right? So he's been talking about the ribs all day, Dave. And not once did he say, "Hey, why don't you come over to my house tonight after we do this intensive TV show?"
Right. Yeah. No, he's got a lot of mouths to feed over there, so I'll be fine going home and seeing my wife and kids and probably having
just get something that quick
chips and salsa.
So very cool.
Yeah, that's what I got into, with some chips and salsa tonight.
Chips and salsa, nice. What, Dave? You said you wanted to give a shout out to a few special people.
Before this all started, Jay and I and Dusty, is he sending you some tree stands, or what's going on with this whole thing? Is he just hoarding them for himself, or what?
I'm included in all this.
All right.
But a couple.
I've been talking with Jay to find out if he had got them, and he received them yesterday. But Adrienne Reeder at Advanced Tree Stands she's an amazing person, and she's kind of our backbone there that helps get things done. And a lot of you probably don't know this, but I work for Advanced Tree Stands also. So I wanted to give a shout out to Adrienne, taking care of you guys, and she's always behind the scenes, but she's what makes the wheels turn on that business. So
very good. What's up, Andrea?
Yeah, those stands are amazing, and they are a sponsor of our podcast. And guys, I thank you for doing that. It's a quality product, and
it is.
When you open up, Jake,
I got my hands on a couple of them last year. I was surprised. I thought it's just another tree stand.
Right.
What could possibly be? I was hooked.
Yeah, they're special. They're a special unit.
I got a shipment delivered here today, and I just unboxed them, and that's what's decorating my office right now. I think Jake was a little disturbed by it. But, got a plant sitting on a box, and
priorities.
Yeah, they're a great company, and I know we're here to talk about.
Yeah, not to take away from the real estate, but we will be doing a podcast with Advanced Tree Stands down the road, a little closer to deer season. We're going to learn all about their products, and Dave, you're going to lead up the charge on that one, I believe.
I'll do that. We got some awesome new products coming out this year too. Cool. And that kind of stuff, it just makes sense for us to do because it benefits Jake and I.
Right.
That's
and you need to have some of these tree stands to find out what the value of these properties are that you're selling.
That's
all right.
Yeah.
Perch yourself high and see some of these things walking around.
Yeah, that's right.
If we're trying to get a hold of Huff Land Company, what you guys got a number to the office here, and where you at on social media?
Social media, you can find us at hufflandcompany.com.
Facebook.
Facebook, we're at Huff Land Company. Our website is hufflandcompany.com. My phone number is 319-830-3630.
319-415-6226 is my cell phone number.
Very good. Yeah,
very good.
People can reach out to you if they're looking to Just
Yeah, we'd love to help.
Yeah.
It can be a lot of fun. I think it'd be best that people just don't try to do it all on their own. I mean, that seems to be kind of the persona of somebody that likes to buy land, is they like to take everything on and do everything themselves. But a lot of times having a good agent that you can trust is a great partner to have in the process. So.
Right. And I think specifically in this niche, I mean, I wouldn't dare to go out and try to buy a piece of whitetail property in a land that's foreign to me without getting somebody that understands that area much better.
I think even the ramifications of buying a piece of property that won't resell well is one that I see sometimes, is that people don't, they just, we get to see a lot of the stuff. Doesn't mean we see everything, but we see a lot. And so we learn a lot, and we can see potential pitfalls that could be an expensive learning experience for somebody that we can help them avoid. So
right, definitely. Dusty, you want to remind everybody who the show is sponsored by tonight?
Tonight's show is sponsored by Covert Scouting Cameras. Look them up, www.dlccovert.com.
And also the Horny Buck Seed Company. Thanks to Doug Kostrava for sponsoring the Facebook Live, and he's a recent sponsor of the podcast as well. So I think, guys, we'll make this a wrap. I don't see any other questions coming in. Dusty, you want to take a quick look at that before we say goodbye to everybody for the evening?
I'm scrolling through now, guys. Bear with me.
Anytime anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot it, friend Jake or I, or ask on our website. I mean, one of us is always here. So.
All right, we did get two questions that snuck in here, guys, and we'll make this quick. Chuck Phillips asks, are you allowed to charge hunters to hunt or lease to a group to hunt to make some of your investment back? I think we touched on that a little bit earlier on.
Yep.
Yes, that's a yes. And then that, I assume there are rules and regulations on to be a guide in the area, et cetera. And I don't know if that means if
licensing.
You own the property, licensing, et cetera. Seth French has one last question. Do you recommend a contract to deed, and where do you look for those types of land sales?
Oh boy, here we go. That can we just did that on the Fayette property that we sold. Just everybody's tax situations are different. There's not a great place to go. So if a guy's gonna sell, he gets all this cash, he may not have anywhere that he needs to put it or wants to put it. Interest rates are low. You're not going to get much on CDs or anything real safe. So sometimes it makes sense for a landowner to sell on contract and get 4 or 5% interest, and take it in payments, and you can set them up so that there's no prepayment in the first 5 years. I mean, that's additional income. I mean, when you take how much interest is being paid on those first 5 years for a seller, that dramatically increases the return that they're getting on their property. A lot of times can benefit a buyer who might have a special financing situation. Maybe they have cash to put down, but they've got a business that is just getting started and doesn't show real well on paper, but they've got cash flow and can pay for it. And there's a lot of different situations, but with interest rates, low and sellers not having somewhere that they feel confident in going with their cash, then a lot of times they will do a contract.
Gotcha.
We'll a lot of times ask that up front too. Like, obviously we want to list it for this. Is that something that you would consider if we did get an offer that somebody would be willing to buy it on contract? And, the seller is usually perfectly clear right then and there if they're willing to do that or not.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a whole other aspect.
It is.
Boy, there's a whole bunch to real estate, as you guys know, that on how to buy it, not just what you're looking at, not just what you're looking to buy, but how to go about buying it. That's a whole other. I mean, you can spend a whole day in a real estate class and still not know how that.
There's a whole lot of things. I mean, attorneys that specialize in this stuff that can catch a lot of things, and others that don't deal with resident or real estate day in and day out that can cause trouble. There's a lot of hurdles, and sometimes people learn the hard way, but if they work with us, we try and make it as seamless as possible.
Right. Well, you guys have all the experts lined up.
We've got our core group of people that we trust.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Excellent. Well, guys, I think this has been a fantastic show, and thanks for coming back and recapping and doing a little show and tell, because it's really hard to show your listings on a podcast because it's all audio. We get to see them today and see what pictures you looked at and what land features you looked at when you were going about trying to sell or list the property. I think that's very interesting, and I just I want to. I'll probably go back after this just to go look at some of the listings again, just to dream a little bit.
Sure.
About getting my piece of whitetail heaven someday in Iowa.
Yeah, someday.
Man. Someday we'll be there.
Well, Jay, you're taking Jake to a Red Sox game. You come here, we'll take you bowling.
Yeah, there you go.
Deal. That's a big deal right
open
there.
to you too, buddy.
All right, I'm in.
Cool.
Excellent. Coming up this weekend, I should say, we have Shannon Hart, who is Miss Wild Game. She's got a TV show that's going to be launching on the Outdoor Channel on May 11th, and we got to interview her. And so stay tuned for that. She's something else, really a very special person, and knows an awful lot about hunting and food plots. And I think she's in Iowa, guys. You may want to connect with her at some point. Yeah, Shannon Hart. So.
All right.
Yeah, listen to that show. She moved down from Buffalo County, Wisconsin, to Iowa.
It's a good county too, though.
Yeah, it's like the quintessential county, right?
Yeah, pretty close.
Missed our good buddy Billy Dahl. What's up, Billy Dahl? I give a shout out to Billy.
Hey, Billy, what's going on, man?
Somehow I missed that he got joined on with us. If you're still with us, Billy, what's up?
Sometimes
Billy
these
Wheelchair Outdoors. If you guys haven't heard of him, there, Dave.
Billy. I don't know him personally, but obviously Mike and Mike is part of our advanced tree stand. Group, and what you guys are doing is awesome, man. It's a great. Appreciate it.
Billy is a special person, definitely.
Yeah, we're going to try to get him here in Ohio and get him on a whitetail. It'd be a super cool experience.
It sounds like it's going to happen. I know my guys had a plan right away to, $50 a piece, and we should be able to get him there. And so
that's right.
It looks like it's going to happen. Hopefully.
That's awesome. I sure do appreciate it, and we're going to do our best to get him up here and get him buck in the truck or in the van.
Right on. Well, we wish you the best, Billy.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
Cool.
You guys, if you guys want to, you're welcome to come out for that event too. We're, it's going to be an epic time we're going to try to hunt try to hunt 4 days, 2 days of bow, 2 days of shotgun, and see if we can't get him on one.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little scared to hunt with Berman. I don't know.
Rightfully so.
Oh man, this could be a whole nother show.
Oh, it could be, man. I love Mike. That guy he's one of a kind. And again, you surround yourself with good people and good things will happen. And right. Mike's one of the best. So
I've hunted with Mike side by side, one of his blinds down where he actually shot the living room buck one time. It's
that's
wild.
What amazes me about Mike is, man, there are no secrets, and he'll take anybody, them, their kids, whatever, to his best. I mean, he truly has a passion for the outdoors and instilling that into others, and it's awesome.
And he's not selfish about it. He wants to share that with all kinds of people, and it blows my mind.
I think he just told you that's where he killed the buck, Jay.
Yeah.
That could be the case. You never really know.
He was on the living room buck territory. I guarantee it. Mike's a good guy, and we had a lot of fun with Mike. Mike's been he was out in New Hampshire on turkey hunt with me. With Jay, Greg. Right. We had a blast.
Right. See, he told you the same story that was where he killed the living room buck. So only Mike knows where he killed the living room buck, really. We don't know. But I felt like I was on sacred ground, and I did.
That's all that matters. That's what
it felt. Yeah, I did.
Yep.
I did. Yep. Actually, I'm going to kill the broadcast here, guys. With everybody, thank you for tuning in again. Big Buck Registry Facebook Live Thursday nights at 8:30, and guys, we'll definitely stay in touch. But hang on, and we'll talk a little bit more off the air.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.